Hello and welcome to GCTV. My name is John Kelly, and today I am here with our representative in the House. He is the ranking member on the Rules Committee and a longtime voice for ending hunger and defending human rights abroad, Congressman Jim McGovern. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Happy to be with you.
When I was a kid, I was told that we were going to be at war with the Middle East for my entire adolescence. And as soon as it seemed like that was no longer the case, we go to war with Iran.
Right.
We've heard terrorism, oil, human rights, nuclear weapons, regime change, all of the above is reasons why we are in this conflict. Why do you believe we're at war with Iran right now?
I think the president gets some bad information that somehow we could just get in and out really quickly and accomplish all of our goals. And he didn't have a clearly defined plan about going to war with Iran. And it now looks like we're stuck in a quagmire. There's a reason why previous presidents, Republican and Democratic presidents alike, have kind of resisted going to war with Iran, is because Iran, has a different set of priorities, and they don't care how many times we bomb them. They're going to continue to just, go on and resist. And before this war, gas prices were coming down. The Strait of Hormuz was open. The war starts. What we've accomplished is closing up the Strait of Hormuz and seeing gas prices go through the roof. And at a time when everything is going up in price, people are frustrated over that. The other thing is other countries are now joining in, or other entities, I should say, as well as other countries, are joining in on Iran's side. Militias, the Houthis are now saying they're going to close down the Red Sea. Will that even raise prices even more? We're learning that the Chinese government is getting military equipment to Iran via Pakistan. So this is widening. And if I were to give the president advice, I'd say get the hell out of this as soon as possible. And if you want to know what to do about the nuclear issue, President Obama actually had an agreement with the Iranian government that could be verified. It wasn't perfect, but it's better than war.
Yeah, better than nothing,
right,
which we have now.
Right.
And to speak on that cabinet, I feel like when people cast their ballot for a president, they don't always see all of the fallout from that single vote. And when we look at these 2 years we've had in this administration, measles cases have hit highs not seen since it was declared eliminated. We have casualty reports from the war in Iran fluctuating with inconsistent reasons being given by the Pentagon as to why. Federal judges have ruled that ICE's detention policy is 90% illegal in cases brought against it. And the Justice Department has repeatedly withheld the Epstein files that you fought to get released, and they've been legally required to for 7 months now. So if Democrats retake the House in November, how do you plan on holding the executive branch accountable?
So understand one thing. Right now, the Republicans control everything. They control the executive branch, they control Congress, and I would argue they control the Supreme Court. So we'll see what the elections result in. If we can take back at least the House, we can maybe succeed in, restraining this administration from some of their worst impulses. We might be able to stop the $1 trillion in cuts to Medicaid, or the $200 billion cut to the SNAP program, which they put forward. I think, the president would have to deal with us more directly on Iran if the war is still going on. And I believe that the current Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, has ceded all of congressional authority to the White House in a way that I've never seen happen before, no matter who was in the White House. And I've also said if this war expands during the month of August when Congress is in recess, the Speaker of the House ought to call Congress back into a special session. We ought to debate it. We ought to vote on it. He ought to stand up for Congress, stand up against Trump, and stop being a coward. And I think most Americans, and most of my constituents, even people here in Grafton that I talk to, when they hear that we've spent close to $100 billion on the war in Iran, bombing elementary schools, I think they'd rather spend $100 billion on building elementary schools here in the United States, or actually solving some of the problems of affordability that they face each and every day. So, people ask me to describe this administration and in this current Congress. It's hard to, because it's chaotic. They're not doing their job, and I think the American people are rightfully frightened by what might come next.
Yeah. And let's talk about this 119th Congress that we have right now. Looking at the Republican trifecta's priorities, as you mentioned, they have control over the executive branch, legislative, and in many ways the judicial branch. The big passage was the One Big Beautiful Bill, where 60% of the tax breaks go to households earning over $217,000. For that, over 1 million children have lost SNAP benefits, and 17 million Americans are projected to lose their health insurance. It alone will add $4 trillion to our debt. Then you've got the Genius Act, which has netted Trump's personal stablecoin over $400 million. You guys had a great bipartisan housing bill with near unanimous support, and the vote for it was canceled, or the signing for it was canceled for the SAVE Act, which the Bipartisan Policy Center has said needs way more time and resources to put in. And in Kansas, they actually implemented a similar law at a state level, and 31,000 eligible citizens were barred from voting. So with the small amount of policy that has been passed by this Congress, what does that tell you about the priorities of the Republican Party right now?
I think they're all screwed up, to be blunt. And I am frustrated because over the years I've worked with Republicans to try to get things over the finish line. I'm a believer that you don't have to agree on everything to agree on something. But but the Republican Party that I have known all my life seems to be dead. I mean, the Republicans in Washington behave like they're in a cult. I mean, people that I've worked with in the past will tell me, oh, this is a lousy bill, but then they'll vote for it. Or they'll tell me they think, Trump is sounding crazy, and then they'll do a press conference saying he's the greatest president in the history of the world. They're afraid of him. And as a result, they are ceding their authority. We're not doing oversight hearings, where, the checks and balances aren't working. I would argue that this president is not only the most corrupt president in recent history. I'd remove the word recent. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, they're making billions of dollars in the White House. He's buying stocks one day and then at a lower price, and the next day announcing a major government investment in that company, and his stocks go up. I mean, it's like, I can't imagine anybody, whether it was Joe Biden or Barack Obama or George W. Bush or George H.W. Bush, getting away with that. And they're doing this, they're getting wealthier. I mean, building a new ballroom in the East Wing at a cost of God knows what, getting a Qatari plane gifted to them that is not secure, and now we have to spend like $1 billion retrofitting it, and he's saying he's going to take it with him when he leaves the White House. I mean, like, all this crazy stuff. The White House looks like, a palace in France, or all draped in gold. The excesses are unbelievable. And meanwhile, regular people feel like no one's paying attention to them. You mentioned the tax cuts. Yeah, the people who benefited the most in the tax cuts were millionaires and billionaires. I mean, the rest of everybody else, the rest of the people don't even realize that they get any relief, because whatever relief they got has been countered by the high cost of food, the high cost of gas, the high cost of housing, the high cost of everything. His tariffs are raising the cost of everything. I mean, this is not a family-friendly or pro-worker Congress or White House. And so we have to, if Democrats are lucky enough to, and fortunate enough to get control, we have to focus in like a laser beam on issues of affordability. Government is supposed to be about helping make people's lives better. And I'll ask anybody who's watching. Has your life improved since Donald Trump got elected? A year and a half ago. If it has, then by all means continue to support him and his policies. But when I go to the supermarket and I talk to people, life is getting tougher for them. And it's getting tougher while they're watching people who are well off and well connected doing better and better and better. So to the Republicans out there, you need to regain control of your party. The Republican Party that I respected, even though I didn't agree with it, was the party of like Bob Dole and George H.W. Bush, Bill Weld, Paul Cellucci. These are people that I could work with, that I thought were reasonable. Liz Cheney and I are good friends, right? But this president, it's like, it's nuts. I've never seen anything like it. And I am really worried, not just about, the impact of his policies on my constituents. I'm worried about what's his ultimate goal. And I worry that he's really moving in a direction to undermine our democracy. I mean, again, I think about it. I mean, tried to overturn a free and fair election, pardoned a group of crazy people who attacked the Capitol on January 6th, who attacked cops, beat up cops. All of them pardoned. Some of them went on to commit crimes after they were pardoned. They raped children. I mean, it's you read the description of what happened after he pardoned these terrible people. They went on to commit more crimes. We have armed militias, mass militias, in the streets, killing American citizens. He's going after and prosecuting his political opponents and members of the free press. I mean, filing suit against the New York Times because he didn't like the story they wrote about how his Qatari plane wasn't properly secure enough for him to fly in. This doesn't happen in America. This happens in authoritarian regimes. And and again, I don't care what your politics may be, we got to wake up and we have to understand what's happening, because if we don't do something about it sooner rather than later, it's going to be too late. And this idea, and I hear this from some of his supporters. Well, I like him and I just trust him. If you don't pay attention and if you don't call him out when he is infringing on the Constitution, then you're complicit. You're complicit. And you're complicit for whatever happens next. I mean, if we lose our free press, those who were silent, you are complicit in that. If we lose our ability to all vote freely, right? You're complicit if you don't say something about that. And I could go on and on and on, but this is about our democracy as well.
Yeah, and speaking of the media and how a lot of people are trying to get their information, right now I see major flaws in our mainstream media that go beyond just corporate interests. We have ABC and CBS giving a combined $30 million to President Trump's inauguration fund instead of fighting lawsuits that similar entities had fought and won. You've got CNN routinely bringing on people for these talk show four top tables that just lie or curse, have to get corrected nightly by moderators, but be brought on the next night. And obviously Fox News lost $800 million almost for lying about the 2020 election outcomes. How do you suggest, not just your constituents, but voters across the country, find accurate and reliable news?
It's harder and harder and harder to do so because, again, some of our most reliable media sources are self-censoring because they don't want to take any flack from Trump. I mean, again, the New York Times, his Justice Department went after reporters who wrote a story that he didn't like. I mean, they didn't break any law, but this is about intimidation. So he did that to the New York Times. If you work for the Boston Globe, you get a scoop, and it's a story, but it's slightly negative to this administration. Are you going to think twice before you go ahead with it? Or if you're ABC, NBC, or CBS, are you going to go with what you know is true if you think it might offend him, or you self-censor and say I'm not going to do that? I talk to a lot of people in the media who are worried about the censorship that is going on, based not on whether their stories are reliable or accurate, but based on their network doesn't want to get in trouble with the president. He doesn't want him. They don't want him going after them. Again, if we allow that to happen, we cease being a free country. We cease being the United States of America that we all love. I mean, I saw an interview not too long ago with Walter Cronkite and David Letterman, believe it or not. And Walter Cronkite, for those of you who don't know him, he was the most trusted man in news media, one of the great anchors of all time. And he talked about going to Germany shortly after the downfall of Hitler. And he went to the camps that were the execution camps that were being liberated, and people were being released. And he says some of the local German officials came to be present at that moment. and said to Walter Cronkite, we knew nothing about any of this. We knew nothing about any of this. And so we have no responsibility. And Walter Cronkite said, I said to them, yes, you do have responsibility. Because when they shut down the free press and you didn't say anything about it, and you didn't yell and scream and fight back, then you made it clear that you were not interested in the facts or the truth or being educated. And so you are complicit in these crimes.
Absolutely. To go back briefly, when we were talking about Congress right now, you're just now starting to see some opposition. The war times resolution almost passed. You have Todd Blanche's AG confirmation getting held up, and that's coming from guys like Senator Tillis, Senator Cornyn, Senator...
Who aren't returning.
Exactly.
Right.
That's kind of the point. You know, when you see Rand Paul go, he's not up for election this year, or Bill Cassidy, he's already out.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about this cult-like mentality, in looking towards these November elections, we are seeing the Democratic Party become more and more diverse, represent more and more groups of people, while there are some critics saying that the party needs to become more homogenized, more central-minded, all talk alike, so we can mimic what's been successful on the right. Do you think that's the right approach?
No, and I think when talking heads and politicians focus in on like, oh well, we can't elect this person because he's too left wing, or we can't elect this person because he's too moderate, or whatever. My view is let the voters decide. You know, I mean, the political elite and the talking heads shouldn't tell voters what they should do, or that they're stupid if they vote for this candidate, or you know, they're smart if they vote for that candidate. I trust the voters. People are frustrated. You know, it's no secret that people are sick of the Republicans and they're sick of Donald Trump. That doesn't mean they're in love with Democrats. And Democrats have a lot to do to earn people's trust back. People are disappointed. They don't think we're fighting hard enough. When we had power, they don't think we accomplished enough. And people don't want us to manage problems. So it's, you know, people aren't saying, oh, I want to elect Democrats and I get another tax credit, you know, a healthcare tax credit. They want us to fix the healthcare system. They don't want us to manage hunger. They want us to end it. You know, they don't want us to manage wars. They want us to not start them or to end them. And so Democrats, you know, should welcome internal debate. And there's nothing wrong with having different wings of the Democratic Party getting elected and battling it out. I think debate is a good thing. And, you know, and my job is to persuade you and your job is to persuade me. And, you know, and if we come to agreement, then we get stuff done. But I think, you know, I think Democrats, you know, need to be thinking now about if we get fortunate enough to win, what are we going to do for the people in the first 100 hours, the first 100 days, the first year? And I think we, you know, have to remind people not just what we're against, but we have to remind people about what we're for. And if I could just say one other thing, I don't care whether you're a Democrat or Republican or independent or however you want to define yourself. One thing I would like to believe we could come together on is maybe figuring out a way to take money and big money out of politics. I mean, running for Congress in some districts now is not just $1 million, it's like tens of millions of dollars. And if you have to raise tens of millions of dollars to get reelected every 2 years, well, where are you going to get that money from? Not from $25 donors. You're gonna tend to move toward, you know, trying to cozy up to big corporations that have deep pockets, and then you take their money, and then all of a sudden you feel like you're stuck, and you're voting in ways that are favorable to big corporations, but not to regular people. So again, I don't care whether you're liberal or conservative, let's figure out, let's come together, let's make campaign finance reform a big deal. And you know, when I became chairman of the Rules Committee, the last time we were in power, I became the first chair in the House of Representatives to say I will not take any corporate PAC money. I've kept to that promise. You know, it means that it's harder to raise money, but I thought it was important. I thought others would follow. Not many did, but we need to de-emphasize the influence of big corporations. And I think even if you're somebody who voted for Trump, I think you would agree with me. I mean, people should be focused in on what regular people, everyday people, working people care about more than about what big corporations care about.
Absolutely. And For our last question, you've been traveling all across the country this year. You've been down in Alabama, here in the district, down in DC, and not just focusing on campaign-specific stuff for the midterm, but issues, helping out. What makes you hopeful going into the end of this year and into the future?
What makes me hopeful is that people are showing up. I mean, all of my in-person town halls in the district, and we did one at the Grafton Library not too long ago. They've been filled. I mean, we did a town hall in Greenfield, over 1,000 people showed up. One in Worcester, over 1,000 people at Holy Cross. And when I look into the audience, it's not a lot of familiar faces. There's a lot of new people and a lot of younger people as well who understand what's at stake. You mentioned I've traveled to other states as well to do town halls. I did one in Racine, Wisconsin a couple of weeks ago. I was in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Again, record turnouts, and people want to change the current reality. And one of the questions that I respond to a lot, is a question that goes like this: when someone says, when I get up in the morning and I look at the news, it's not one thing, it's not two things, it's like 10 things that really concern me. And I'm like exhausted, and I feel overwhelmed, and I feel powerless, and I want to just pull the shade and have you wake me up when it's all over. And I respond by saying that's a deliberate tactic by some to get you to feel powerless, so maybe you won't show up to a rally, maybe you won't call your member of Congress, maybe you won't even vote. And we have to resist that, because I think this midterm election is so important that we all have to show up. We all have to show up, because if we don't change things now, I think in 2028, it's going to be even more difficult, if not impossible. And I'll just say one other thing. Our elections, contrary to what the president is saying, are the freest, fairest elections in the world. And states oversee their election systems. He's trying to get people to doubt the election. He's trying to find ways to pass legislation to disenfranchise legitimate voters, to make it more difficult for a woman who took her husband's married name to be able to vote, with, you have to him with a passport or a birth certificate to prove who she is. He's trying to do that, and I don't think he's going to succeed in terms of changing the laws. I hope he doesn't, because the election is right around the corner. But you say, why is he doing that? And I think one of my fears is that he thinks that Democrats might win, and he wants to be able to say that these elections are illegitimate, and he wants to be able to find a way to create a constitutional crisis where he won't recognize a new Congress, and have the Supreme Court somehow weigh in on this. This is very, very, very dangerous, very, very dangerous. And again, no matter, I've won elections, I've lost elections, I've celebrated elections, I've been depressed after elections, but the bottom line is, I trust the people. And we have to trust the people, and people need to show up and vote like they never voted before.
Congressman, thank you so much for your time.
Well, it's great to be with you.
Coming out here today. If you're interested in any of the sources that have informed these questions today, they can be found in the description below. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. See you next time.